Let me ask you something before we even begin. When you think about your liver, if you ever think about it at all, do you picture something you could actually help right there at the breakfast table? Most people don't. I'm Emma Becker. If we haven't met, you might know my husband. He runs the Dr. Becker channel. I take the broader beat over here, the everyday body after 60, and the small, doable things nobody at your 12-minute appointment has time to explain. So pour yourself something warm and pull up a chair. Because what you put on your plate tomorrow morning matters more to your liver than almost anyone has told you, and it's simpler and a lot less scary than you'd think. Let me start with a number, and I want you to hear it calmly because there's no reason to panic. By the most careful estimates we have, somewhere around 1 in 3 adults is now walking around with a little extra fat stored inside the liver. 1 in 3. And after 60, with the way our metabolism shifts, that share climbs higher still. Most of the people who have it don't know they have it. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't announce itself. It usually turns up as a surprise on a routine blood test when a doctor mentions, almost in passing, that your liver enzymes are a little up, and then the room moves on to the next thing. Now, here's what that rushed appointment didn't have time to tell you. A fatty liver, for most people in the early stages, is one of the more responsive things in the whole body. It is not a life sentence. The liver is, honestly, the great forgiver of our organs. Give it the right conditions, and it has a remarkable capacity to clear out that stored fat and get back to its proper work. And one of the most underrated levers we have to nudge it in the right direction is the very first meal of the day. Nobody tells you that breakfast could be a tool for your liver. They hand you a worried look and a watch your diet, and they leave the homework on your kitchen table without the instructions. I'm a researcher, and honestly, that's exactly why I have the time to read the papers and tell you this. I never stopped reading. That's the whole credential. And I'll tell you the other thing too. I'm a woman your age. I watch my own numbers. I've sat in that chair and heard, it's a little up. Keep an eye on it. So this isn't a lecture from a pedestal. This is one woman who reads the studies, pulling up a chair next to another. So here's where we're going. 3 breakfast foods, real ones, cheap ones, ones already in your supermarket that the research keeps connecting to a healthier, lighter liver. For each one, I'll give you the food, then why it actually helps in plain English, then the honest catch so you don't get oversold, and then exactly how to use it without spending a fortune. And if that's the kind of thing you want, plain, honest, nobody selling you a single thing, go ahead and subscribe and stay a while. There's a free companion guide down in the description, no strings attached. Now, let's look at this together. Let me give you my honest opinion before I show you a single study, because I think you deserve the bias up front. For a long time, I quietly assumed a fatty liver was mostly about drinking, and that if you didn't drink much, you were in the clear. I'll be honest, I had that backwards. The far more common version of this, especially in women our age, has nothing to do with alcohol at all. It's tied to how our bodies handle sugar and insulin as the years go by. And when I actually read that work carefully, I felt a little foolish because it meant the lever was in our hands all along. It's on the plate, it's in the cupboard, it's affordable, and most of us were never handed the instructions. Let me say what's at stake here, and I want to say it in the hopeful way, not the frightening way, because fear is the last thing you need. An early fatty liver is the stage where what you eat matters the most. It's the window where small, steady, ordinary choices genuinely shift the odds in your favor over months. That's not nothing. That's a real, doable kind of power. And it's the reason I wanted to make this for you instead of letting it sit as another scary line on a lab report. Now, before I go on, let me name the thought I know some of you are having, because I'd be thinking it too. Here we go, another internet health fad, another superfood that's going to fix everything by Friday. Fair, completely fair. So let me promise you the opposite. Not one of these 3 is magic. Not one of them empties anything overnight, no matter what a thumbnail tells you. What they do is something quieter and more real. They give your liver better working conditions, breakfast after breakfast, and over time that adds up. Let me show you, and I'll be straight with you about every one. Let me start with the food that has hands down the strongest evidence behind it of anything I'm going to tell you today. And it's going to make some of you very happy because it's already sitting on your counter. It's coffee, plain, ordinary coffee. I know, I can hear a few of you. Coffee? The thing my doctor told me to cut back on? Stay with me because this is one of the most consistent findings in the whole field of liver research, and it surprised a lot of careful scientists too. Across a very large body of population studies, these are studies that follow a lot of people over time and look at who tends to do better. Regular coffee drinkers show again and again a lower likelihood of liver scarring and a friendlier picture on their liver tests than people who don't drink it. It's one of the few foods or drinks where the research community actually feels comfortable saying out loud, "This one keeps showing up." So, why would a cup of coffee be good news for a fatty liver? Let me translate this without the jargon. Coffee is full of compounds. Caffeine is one, but there's a whole family of plant antioxidants in there too. Things with names like chlorogenic acid, which is just a natural compound in the coffee bean that calms inflammation. And remember what a fatty liver actually is. It's fat stored inside the liver cells. And over time, that stored fat can stir up low-grade inflammation, a kind of slow internal irritation, and that irritation is what can lead years down the line to stiffening and scarring of the tissue. The compounds in coffee appear to push against exactly that process. They seem to help quiet that irritation and make it harder for the tissue to stiffen. Think of it less as a scrub brush and more like lowering the heat under a pot that's simmering too hard. Now, the honest catch, and I won't skip it, almost all of this evidence is what we call observational. It's watching large groups of people and noticing a pattern, not a controlled experiment where we assign half the room to drink coffee and check their livers years later. That kind of study is hard to do with a drink people choose for themselves. So I can't promise you cause and effect, and I won't. What I can tell you, woman to woman, is that the pattern is unusually strong and unusually consistent, and that this is genuinely one of the better evidenced everyday things you can do for liver health. That's the honest version. So here's exactly what to do with that, and it costs you nothing extra. If you already drink your morning coffee, you may simply keep going, and that alone might be a small kindness to your liver. The research signal tends to look best somewhere in the range of a couple of cups a day, not 10. And here's the part that matters most for us. It's the coffee itself doing the work, not the river of cream and sugar we pour into it. A mug of coffee can quietly help the liver while 2 heaping spoons of sugar in that same mug pull in the wrong direction, because sugar is the very thing that feeds fat storage in there. So my honest read, the thing I actually do is keep the coffee, drink it black or with just a splash of milk, and treat the sugar bowl as the thing to taper, not the coffee. If caffeine keeps you up, and after 60, a lot of us are more sensitive to it, keep it to the morning. And remember that even decaf carries a good share of those same protective plant compounds. That's a real option, and nobody mentions it. Now, that's one, and it's the strongest one. Here's the next, and it's even gentler. It's oats, a plain bowl of oatmeal. Here's where it gets practical, because this one is about a single magic-sounding word that is not magic at all. The reason oats keep showing up in the conversation about liver and metabolic health is a type of fiber inside them called beta-glucan. Let me translate that immediately because it sounds like something from a chemistry exam. Beta-glucan is just a soluble fiber, soluble meaning it dissolves and turns into a soft gel in your gut. And that little detail is the whole point. As that gel forms, it slows down how fast sugar from your meal slips into your bloodstream. Instead of a sharp spike, you get a gentle rise. Why does that help your liver? Stay with me, because this is the chain that connects breakfast to that organ tucked under your right ribs. When sugar floods in fast, your body answers with a surge of insulin, the hormone that manages your blood sugar. Do that meal after meal, year after year, and the system gets overworked. And one of the places that strain shows up is the liver, which starts storing more fat. So anything that softens that sugar spike at breakfast is indirectly taking a little pressure off the liver. That's what the gel from oats does. It's not glamorous, it's a bowl of porridge. But the mechanism is real and it's well understood. Let me be straight with you about the catch here too, because I won't oversell a bowl of oats. The fiber in oats has good, solid evidence for steadying blood sugar and for nudging cholesterol in a friendlier direction. The leap from there all the way to this clears fat out of your liver is a reasonable, well supported chain of reasoning, but it's a chain, not a single dramatic study with your name on it. I'm telling you that on purpose because you deserve to know the difference between proven directly and very sensibly connected. Oats are the second. And here's the part I have to slow you down on because it's where most people accidentally undo the whole thing. The benefit is in the oat, not in the sugar we drown it in. A bowl of plain rolled oats is a gift to your blood sugar. A packet of the flavored instant kind, the maple and brown sugar sort, can carry as much sugar as a cookie. And at that point, you've handed your liver the exact problem you were trying to solve. Let me say that more carefully. I'm not against convenience, and I'm not here to shame anyone's busy morning. I'm just telling you to read the side of the box, because the difference between the plain oat and the sugary packet is the difference between helping and hurting. So here's the doable version, and it's pennies a serving. Buy the big canister of plain rolled oats or the old-fashioned kind. It's one of the cheapest foods in the entire store. It keeps for ages, and a serving costs you next to nothing. Cook it with water or a little milk. Then sweeten it yourself, gently, with something that brings its own fiber along a handful of berries. Frozen is perfectly fine and often cheaper, or half a chopped apple, or a sprinkle of cinnamon, which has its own small, friendly effect on blood sugar. A few mornings a week is plenty. You don't need it every single day for it to count. That's the whole thing. A cheap bowl, sweetened with fruit instead of sugar, a few times a week. Now let me make this real with someone, because the science only matters when it touches a life. I sat with a woman last spring, I'll call her Dolores, and she was as sharp as a tack at 70. Dolores had gotten one of those "your liver enzymes are a little up" comments at a checkup, and the way she described it to me has stayed with me. She said the doctor told her to watch her diet, and then the appointment was over, and she walked out to her car and just sat there because she didn't know what watching her diet was supposed to mean. Did it mean starve? Did it mean give up everything she loved? Nobody had the time to tell her, so she'd spent weeks frightened and confused, eating less and less to be good and feeling worse for it. So we talked the way two women our age talk over a cup of tea. And what struck me was how relieved she was to learn it wasn't about deprivation at all. It was about a few small swaps at the start of the day. She told me her breakfast had been a big glass of orange juice and one of those sweet flavored oatmeal packets every single morning because she thought juice and oatmeal were the healthy choice. And they can be, but the way she was doing it, that breakfast was a quiet wave of sugar hitting her first thing, day after day. I didn't tell her to give up a thing she loved. We just talked about keeping the coffee she already drank, switching the sweet packet for plain oats with frozen berries, and treating the juice as a small glass with food now and then instead of a tall one on an empty stomach. Months later, she told me she felt steadier through her mornings, less of that mid-morning crash, and this is the part I love, she'd stopped being afraid of her own kitchen. That's what this is really about. Not fear, just the instructions nobody had time to give her. And that brings me to the third food, and I saved it for last on purpose because I think it's the most overlooked of the three. It's leafy greens. And yes, I'm going to put greens on your breakfast plate, and I'll show you exactly how. Because I know that sounds odd at first. Here's the thinking. In plain terms, dark leafy greens, spinach, kale, chard, the humble ones, are loaded with a family of plant compounds called nitrates, along with a whole crowd of antioxidants. Let me translate the part that matters for your liver. There's growing research, some of it, the kind of controlled feeding study we like better than just population watching, suggesting that the natural nitrates in leafy greens may help the liver store less fat. The leading idea is that these compounds support the way blood vessels relax and the way the liver handles fat, so the organ holds on to less of it. It's earlier stage science than the coffee story. I'll be honest about that, but it's promising. And greens are so cheap and so good for you in a dozen other ways that I have zero hesitation putting them on the list. Now, the honest catch? Plainly, this is the youngest of the three lines of evidence. A lot of the most encouraging work here is in laboratory and animal studies, with the human research still catching up. So I'm not going to dress it up as settled. What I can tell you is that the direction is consistent and the downside is essentially zero. A handful of spinach has never hurt anyone, and it's bringing a small army of other benefits along for the ride. When the cost of trying is a bag of frozen spinach, I think the sensible move is to lean in. So here's how to actually get greens into breakfast without choking down a salad at 7 in the morning, because nobody's doing that. The easiest thing in the world, throw a big handful of fresh spinach into your scrambled eggs while they cook. It wilts down to almost nothing, it disappears into the eggs, you barely taste it, and now your breakfast is quietly doing more for you. If you make a smoothie, a handful of frozen spinach vanishes into the fruit, you won't know it's there. Frozen greens are the secret here. They're cheaper than fresh, they don't wilt and rot in your drawer, and they're picked and frozen at their peak, so you're losing nothing. A bag of frozen spinach costs a couple of dollars and lasts for weeks of breakfast. That's the realistic version. Now let me build on that, because I told you three and I want to honor that. But the truth is, these three foods aren't really three separate tricks. They're one idea wearing three coats, and I think you deserve to see the idea itself, not just the list, because the idea is what lets you make smart choices long after this video ends. Here's the whole thing in one breath. A fatty liver in the early stages is mostly a story about sugar and insulin over time. So the most powerful thing your breakfast can do is keep the morning sugar wave gentle and bring along compounds that calm the slow inflammation inside the liver. Coffee brings the protective plant compounds and the strongest evidence. Oats bring the fiber that softens the sugar spike. Greens bring the nitrates and antioxidants that may help the liver hold less fat. Three coats, one body underneath. And once you see that, you can build 100 good breakfasts on your own. A couple of eggs with a handful of spinach, plain oats with berries, your black coffee on the side, that's a liver-friendly morning, and it costs less than the sugary cereal it replaces. Now, I want to give you the honesty turn because this is the part the headlines always leave out, and it's the part I'd most want a friend to tell me straight. Let me be very clear with you. None of this, not the coffee, not the oats, not the greens, not all three together is a cure. And the word empty in a title like this is a promise no food can keep on its own, certainly not overnight, certainly not in a few days. Anyone who tells you a single breakfast flushes the fat out of your liver by the weekend is reaching for your wallet, and I won't do that to you. What these foods do is shift the conditions in your favor, breakfast after breakfast, month after month. It's the careful driver kind of help, not the lottery ticket kind. It's real, and it's worth doing, and it is also slow and quiet and undramatic, which is exactly why nobody puts it on a flashy thumbnail. And here's the second honest thing, because I promised you two. Breakfast is one lever, not the only lever, and I'd be lying if I pretended otherwise. The research is clear that the things which move a fatty liver the most are the bigger, less glamorous pieces: gentle, steady weight management, if your doctor says that applies to you, regular movement of almost any kind, going easy on alcohol, and cutting back on sugary drinks, and ultra-processed food across the whole day, not just the morning. These three breakfast foods fit inside that bigger picture beautifully, but they don't replace it. I'd rather you hear that from me, honestly, than feel let down later because a bowl of oats wasn't a miracle. And one more thing, said plainly, and only once every single piece of this belongs, alongside the people caring for you, never instead of them. If you've been told your liver numbers are up, this video is something to bring to your doctor as a good question, not a reason to change anything on your own, and certainly not a reason to stop or adjust any medication. I'm a researcher who reads the studies. They know your body. Both matter. This is information, not a diagnosis. So here is your one thing this week, and only one, because I want it to actually happen. This week, change just your breakfast drink in your breakfast bowl. Keep your coffee, keep it. You have my blessing, but pour it black or with just a splash of milk and slow down on the sugar you add to it. And swap whatever sweet, sugary thing you start the day with for one bowl of plain oats sweetened with a handful of frozen berries. That's it. Let me say that again slowly, because I know some of you write these down, and I love that you do. Black or near black coffee, and a bowl of plain oats with frozen berries in place of the sugary breakfast. One drink, one bowl. Do only that a few mornings, and you've already started taking the pressure off your liver. The greens you can fold in next week, a handful of spinach in your eggs, once this feels easy. Now, before I let you go, you are not falling apart, and you are not too old for any of this. You're being ignored, handed a worried look and a vague, watch your diet, and sent on your way, and that's the part we can fix, together, right here. With the instructions nobody had time to give you, you have one body, you've carried it a long way, and it is still listening to you. Your liver, especially, is more forgiving than almost any organ you've got. Give it half a chance at breakfast, and it tends to take it. So be good to it this week. Bring this to your doctor, not as a fear, but as a good question. And remember, you're not falling apart, you're being ignored, and we can fix that. Take care of yourself, and I mean that the way a friend means it. I'll see you next time. And tell me in the comments which one you're starting with, the coffee, the oats, or the greens. I read these, every single one of them.